the flesh wound.
I'm sure you can tell that the point that I've labored through there is that Battlefield has never really been that realistic. And you may say that the clips I've shown are examples of it being unrealistic in a mechanical sense, which is basically inevitable when making any video game. You're never going to find a video game that's 100% authentic or realistic, especially when trying to balance for fun gameplay. But the setting, tone, and feel of Battlefield has generally been more rooted in reality. To which I'd say, yeah, that's probably fair. But the inaccuracies of past games have gone beyond just the mechanics. So given the past history of the series, this appeal to hyperrealism is kinda strange. Is it really necessary for a World War II shooter to be firmly rooted in reality, or that it has to be a historically accurate depiction, or that you have to get all the facts completely 100% correct, that you can't take any artistic license with it? Is it really so bad if Battlefield veers away from the typical somber, gritty, ultra-realistic World War II shooter that has been so commonplace up till now? It's not as though these kinds of games don't already exist. It's a pretty saturated part of the genre at this point, which begs the question, well, what's wrong with stepping away from the norm and having an alternative depiction of the war? I mean, the game doesn't advertise itself as a documentary. The Wolfenstein series is a great example of a slightly different take on World War II. It's a highly stylized, fictional, alternative reality of the war. And it received little to no backlash, at least about that particular issue. So I was kind of surprised at how vociferous and vocal the backlash against the new Battlefield trailer was. Now, if your issue with the trailer is purely on the artistic front, that you just don't agree with the direction DICE are taking stylistically, so things like the prosthetic arm, the face paint, that's a pretty valid complaint to have. I don't agree with it, but it's a valid personal complaint, if that's the way you feel. That doesn't really seem to be the main issue for a large portion of the dissenters. Bigger source of the frustration seems to be about the woman frontlining the trailer. The anger seems to stem from a more political stance. I'll get back to that a little later, but for now, let's have a look at another common complaint. Now this is such a strange complaint, like I just find this really weird. This whole clutching of my pearls and going, oh, but what about the veterans? Like trying to take the moral high ground and say that the soldiers of the past would feel disrespected or disgraced by this game. Again, it's not the first time a piece of entertainment has portrayed World War II in an unrealistic way. Are we going to say that all of them are disgraceful now or disrespectful? One of the first Medal of Honor games had a woman soldier as the protagonist and no one really gave a shit. Let's be honest, most Battlefield fans aren't massive history buffs trying to get a real authentic look into the war and how hellish it was for the soldiers back then and what it meant for their families and the world in general. No, we're just dudes trying to kill time by shooting things in the face. Like, it's not that complicated. So I find this complaint kind of condescending, and people are trying to get on their high horse for no reason other than they kind of disagree with what the game's doing, but trying to justify it in their own head, like they have some moral obligation to do it. It all reeks a bit of,
oh, won't somebody please think of the
veterans.
So that was a load of crap. So on to the next one. Now we come on to the real big issue. The issue of DICE's political agenda. They're trying to convert us all into liberal SJW beta soy boy cucks. Oh geez. But really, when you watch the trailer, there isn't anything political in it. Yeah, it included a woman, but what about that screams politics? First and foremost, above all else, this was clearly a business decision. If DICE had any way of knowing that in the end this would cost them a lot of money, then they would not have done it. There's no way. Females make up half the population of the world, and clearly if DICE can encourage more girls to play their game, then there's a hell of a lot of money to be made from that. Now the argument could be made that the backlash from this would offset that potential gain, but I'm pretty sure that DICE would have anticipated it, and I really doubt that a significant amount of people are gonna forego buying this game just because of the woman in the trailer. As with anything online, the immediate reaction is a lot more visceral than the actual practical application. I doubt this backlash actually means much in terms of how many people end up buying the game, and I'm pretty sure DICE share my doubts. Now clearly a lot of people feel that DICE are pushing way too hard to ensure that women feel represented in this video game. I can see the argument being made that people shouldn't think it's important to feel represented in the media. These people are snowflakes. No game developer should appeal to their emotional feelings. I find that sentiment really weird because the backlash to the trailer was entirely emotional. Why should DICE feel the need to appease those feelings? I mean, the issue of representation is a whole other massive topic, so I'm not going to get into that now. But I just find it strange that the same people who claim that it's not important for minorities or certain groups to feel represented in the media will then flip their shit at a trailer like this. Like, they'll say no one should care, and then they'll throw a massive temper tantrum if it doesn't suit their ideals. There's a bit of a disconnect in reasoning there. And I don't really buy this, it's just about the realism argument, because given the amount of historical inaccuracies that were glossed over, inaccuracies like the jetpack, the automatic weapons in Battlefield 1, being a one-man army just running around with a heavy-ass machine gun, mowing down dozens of enemies by yourself, well, that seems a bit unrealistic to me too. No one really cared about all that. But oh crap, you put a woman in your trailer and damn, that's some real shit. Now suddenly everyone's a history expert. This is a perfect example of a microcosm of the times we're living in. On one hand, you get the odd crazy person like this.
This person just sexually harassed me!
But then, on the other extreme, you have people who believe that the world is full of SJW boogeymen. That every little thing is a sign of political correctness gone way too far. This sentiment has become increasingly popular lately, and it leads to situations like this, where people are really stretching to ascribe certain political narratives or agendas into circumstances where they don't really exist. Medal of Honor Underground came out in the year 2000. It not just featured a woman in their cover art or as a playable character model in the multiplayer, but a protagonist in the single player campaign. And no one really gave a crap because it was the year 2000 and the whole idea of SJWs and anti-SJWs didn't really exist. So people just kind of took it at face value that there happens to be a woman in this video game, and it wasn't really viewed as a negative thing. So I struggle to see why it's so different this time. The key difference seems to be that everyone is now geared and wired up to try and look out for these things. Oh, is that feminist? This trailer was made in a way that it didn't feel forced or contrived to me. You know, unlike the all-female cast of the Ghostbusters or Oceans movie. But the strong reaction to this Battlefield trailer is just so strange. It really seems to me like a case where people are stretching to feel offended. And to that I'd say, hey, chill out. Don't be such a triggered snowflake, dude.